smoking. So it's about changing your habits and changing who you are, and moving beyond pain is about recognizing. You have to recognize where you are sabotaging yourself, where you are destroying yourself, where you are hurting yourself. That's the first point of where you should work from in the beginning. An example that I shared earlier in the call was in regards to, I started smoking when I was in immense pain. And I remember a particular day, I'll mention 2 occasions where I was outside and I was smoking, and I came back inside and I was like, I really don't like it. I actually don't like the taste. I don't like the feeling. My chest feels tight and wheezy. It's horrible. Why am I smoking? Why the hell am I doing this? It's a lot of money and it's a waste of time and I don't even enjoy it. And I thought, it's because I'm stressed. And then I asked myself another question. I was like, is there another reason why I'm doing this? And when I dug in, the reason is I was housebound at that time. And I would be able to leave my little boy in his crib and go outside. It was the only way that I gave myself permission to leave the house. And it was just on the veranda, still on the house, attached to the house. But it was the only time I gave myself permission to leave the inside to go outside. I'd created my own prison in my own mind, that I was housebound and I couldn't leave. The only time I gave myself permission was to go outside to have a cigarette. And I'd sit outside and I'd smoke, and I recognised that the reason why I was smoking is because I wanted to escape the prison. I wanted to be outside, but I could have done that regardless. So then, one day, I'm sat outside with a cigarette and I'm wanting to burn myself. I'm wanting to dig this cigarette so deep into my flesh that I could smell my skin burning. I visualized it, I smelt it happening, and I thought I'd feel absolute relief if I did that. And I watched myself put the cigarette to my skin, and I watched my hairs on my legs singe. And in that moment, I sat there and I asked myself a question. Am I at that place where I can't bear the pain that I'm in, so I'm willing to create more pain for myself? I'm willing to feel more pain, inflict more pain on myself. Now, in that decision, there could have been 2 ways. I could have burnt myself with a cigarette. I'm watching and I'm looking at my leg doing it. I'm actually seeing clearly, right now, exactly where I was sat, what the weather was like. I can clearly remember it. And I'm looking at my leg, the exact spot of where I was thinking. Do you see how we store this information? Every time you can vividly remember something like that and you haven't worked on the emotional response to it, you're taking your body back to that place in that emotional trauma, and you're re-traumatizing yourself. That's really important to remember. If you don't deal with the emotional attachment to it, you are re-traumatizing yourself every time you recall that. I'm not re-traumatizing myself. There's no emotional reaction. You can tell, you can hear in my voice. You can tell the way I'm describing it, there's no emotional reaction. There's no emotion behind it. It's a story. But I'm sharing this particular bit of information right now with you, which I didn't, for those of you who are still tuned in, I didn't at the beginning. But I'm sharing that with you right now because it's still there. It never goes away. The memory of things never goes away. It's the emotional charge that causes the havoc. It's the emotional charge that causes this deep hurting and suffering. That's what creates the suffering. It's not actually the pain, okay? It's the emotional suppression and holding it. Excuse, I don't have corona, just coughing. So I could have put that cigarette and burnt my flesh, or tossed the cigarette away. I tossed the cigarette away. I never smoked again after that day. I realised why I did it. So we think that it needs to be difficult to break habits. We think it has to be a difficult journey. It's a decision, but it has to be at that perfect timing of where the pain of continuing doing what you're doing is more stronger, has more of an impact empowering your life than the reward that you get from it. The pain for me in that moment was the realization I was ready to burn myself, that I had created a prison, that I thought the only way that I could actually escape that prison was through smoking to leave outside. I could give myself permission whenever I wanted to go sit on that veranda, but I trained my mind to think that the only time I could give myself permission was to smoke. Do you see the attachment there? Not only that, I had the deep realization that I was in so much pain that I was willing to give myself more pain than just sit with that pain. Say that again. I, in that moment, recognized that I was willing to give myself more pain than to deal with the pain that I was experiencing. When you have a deep realization like that, there is no power behind the sabotaging thing you are doing. There's no more power behind the cigarette. I'd just completely taken its power away. The power it had over me was twofold. The first was the power that it had me escape what I didn't want to experience, which was being trapped in this prison in my house with a baby in absolute agony, in absolute isolation and fear. The cigarettes gave me an out from that for that period of time. I trained my mind that that's what the cigarette did. So of course I wouldn't have been able to quit smoking if I hadn't have found that. The second thing is, when I had that realization that really what I was doing was masking the deep suffering and pain, and I was willing to give myself more suffering and more pain, and I realized and caught myself doing that before I did it, I took the power away from it because I recognized it. It was no longer a subconscious pattern that I was unaware of. It was a subconscious pattern that I saw full frontal of, wow, this is how bad my life has got, that I am ready to dig a cigarette, and I was ready to stab it right in. I was toying with myself and burning the hairs. I was getting a thrill out of burning the hairs on my leg. But I caught myself in the moment of seeing that happening. This is called where you are able to remove yourself out of the situation. Okay? That's what it means by the observer. I was able to observe the situation with no judgment. That's how you heal, is to be able to increase the capacity and the strength of the meta-communicator, the observer. Once you start to strengthen that part of you, you'll no longer suffer in life. You've got to just keep working on strengthening that part.